Thanks. Oh, here we go. Yeah, thanks, guys. And thanks for asking me to come on. I'm like, 50 minutes? Come on. Like, who wants to listen to a speaker for fucking 50 minutes? Like, I have like the capacity to listen to somebody for 15, 20 minutes. And then I'm like thinking about what I'm going to do later, what I'm going to do tomorrow. When are they going to shut up? When is it time for me to share? When is it time for me to ask questions? We're like, gosh, did they really want to listen to me for 50 minutes? I can't even listen to me for 50 minutes. But anyway, it's the format of the meeting. Like, I'll probably give you a half hour and we can see where it goes from there. When I feel the spirit getting sucked out of me, or when I maybe see the spirit getting sucked out of some of you guys, I'll know when to wrap it up. I'm very insecure, so I generally can watch when people start yawning and switching off their cameras. I'll just start shutting up. But I was laughing actually thinking of that because I find it difficult to share on Zoom. I heard somebody speaking before saying it doesn't matter where you share. Once you let God in and share, you can generally perform or reach somebody like with that. And I don't know if that's my story. Like, I find it difficult to connect on Zoom. I try my best. I was doing my prayers when Terry was trying to ring my phone, just saying, God, please just remove whatever little self-centeredness or insecurity is showing and just help me share my little heart. That's what I've been doing since I come into Cocaine Anonymous, and people connect with me, and I suppose that's all I have, and all I have is my story. And that seems to change a little bit over time as well. It's funny, like when I think back of when I came in first, me what it was like was so dramatic and so painful and so and now when I look back on it, it's like I'm really grateful that those things happened to me in my early life, because they've really shaped me into the woman I am today. They really have, and it's amazing to be able to say that once was a very troubled, traumatic childhood. I can now look back and go, them things have really shaped me into the woman I am. And I'm really grateful for the experiences. And I know that anything I've experienced in my life, coming into Cocaine Anonymous and sitting with another woman or man, that my experiences became useful. How I got through these things has become useful, and how I've coped with them and reached out for God in them and used them in the fellowship for the greater good has become really part of the story and part of the beauty of this stuff. You know what I mean? So if you're new in here and entrenched in your story, stick around, because the longer you're around, the worse you wish the story was, because it's more useful for helping, and I just celebrated 10 years sobriety last month, and it's just, it really amazes me. It blows me away. Uh, some people say, you need to be humble. It's only one day at a time. And I'm like, fuck that shit. Like, I'm absolutely delighted. I'm 10 years sober. It blow where I've came from. And when I look at my family members and people around me in active addiction, I'm like a miracle. I'm an absolute miracle, and we all are miracles, and we see that in the rooms all the time, and we know that from our own stories. And I'll touch on what it was like a little bit, and then what happened and what it's like now. And I'm like most people. When I come in here, I just come in to get rid of the drug habit and get rid of the consequences and get rid of all of that stuff. But obviously, when you come in here, you're given a whole lot more when you stick around. And when I grew up as a young little girl in Dublin, our capital here in Ireland, both my parents were alcoholics, most of my family were, and I drank and drugged from a really, really young age. I often talk about when I was small, I used to wet the bed. I'm one of those little kids who I always thought nothing scared me, you know what I mean? But when I look back, I see I was very fearful inside, and I was driven by that fear. And I didn't know any of them things till I came into recovery. But when I was a little kid, I discovered alcohol really, really young. And I'm talking 9, getting sick from drinking my sister's vodka, her and our pals. And did I love it? I don't know. Some people remember when they first took a drink or drug. I don't know how it made me feel or anything like that. I just know that from a young age, I drank and I drugged. And as I got older, when I say older, I mean in my teens, I definitely, my whole life revolved around when we could drink, when we could smoke, when we could get this, when we could get that. I was smoking at a really young age as well. I loved, I suppose, anything that got me away from myself or got me away from the home and made me feel connected with other people that were like-minded, you know. And drink always had me in trouble from the get-go. So socially acceptable, but it always had me in trouble. When I look back, Jesus, the denial with the drink from a really young age is mad. But when I look back, it always had me landed in places where I was ashamed or situations where I'd end up and, drink driving at a young age, very suicidal kind of teenager, couldn't cope with any type of rejection that came into my life. Didn't know that's what it was. The sniff of rejection from people absolutely terrified me. And I couldn't cope with it. Like, I really couldn't. And, but drinking and drugging and being that kind of, I was a real outgoing kid. Internally, well, I don't know what was going on with me. I didn't know what was going on with me internally till I was about 4 years sober. I did not know what I was or what was going on inside me, but I know that I loved being in the middle of drinking and drugging, and I felt part of in the middle of that. I felt connected in that. I suppose drink and drugs done for me what it said on the tin. They gave me the ability to be who I wanted to be, which was like the life and soul of the party or cracking the jokes, the classroom clown, learned nothing in school. I thought I was always dyslexic growing up. I thought I was stupid. I couldn't read or write, but I was just so fearful. I was so fearful, and I, drinking drugs saved my life. I know that for a fact. I know drinking drugs saved my life. When I was a teen, my father committed suicide. He was also one of us. He was a drinker. Um, and he took his own life. And I spoke to him just before he did. And I was 15 at the time. And today I really, really relate to him. I really, really relate to what was going on for him. He was experiencing his life rejection at the time. And it happened a few times to him. And he just couldn't cope anymore. He was only in his 40s. He just couldn't cope. And he killed himself. And I spoke to him then, and now having learned all the stuff I've learned in recovery, when I look back, he wasn't trying to kill himself. Same way I wasn't trying to kill myself. I just couldn't cope with life on life's terms. I couldn't cope with experiencing rejection. I couldn't cope with not being accepted or part of. I couldn't cope with any of those things. But alcohol and drugs were great. And they made me feel okay and all of that stuff, And that's what happened. I went through my teens like that, and I went through my life like that. And when I was a young girl, like 18, I met a man who lived far away, and I thought if I married him and moved counties, that I would feel better, that I wouldn't have to drink and drug. At this time, I had a heroin habit. I was using every day. My life was a mess. My life was a mess. I'd get clean from a substance for a little while, but I would drink. And internally, I knew this wasn't the way life was supposed to be. I always say that because something inside me, I know now what it is. We all have it, like it's the little God conscience side. I knew this isn't the way it was supposed to be. And I didn't want it. I didn't like what way life was. I wanted to stop taking drugs and alcohol from a teenager. I didn't actually stop till I got into my 40s, but I wanted to stop from a young age. I knew it wasn't the way it was supposed to be. And I thought if I got married, I thought if I had a family that I would be different. I'd be different to the way my mother reared us, my father. I wouldn't do to my children what they done to me. The man would fix me. The house would fix me. The family would fix me. All of those things that most people try to do to sort themselves out. Never, ever was drink going to be removed. That wasn't even in the equation. Okay, certain drugs needed to be removed. But it was okay to take a bit of cocaine at the weekends and drink. That's the way my thinking was. I didn't understand what we suffered with. I didn't understand allergies. I didn't understand mental obsessions. Even though I'm a walking mental obsession, I'm absolutely walking on that stuff. Even 10 years in, I see me mind and how savage it can be. And of course, I moved, I married, I had babies, I done all of those things, and I'd love to be able to say they were enough to make me sober up for a while, but they weren't. nothing was ever enough for me to sober for a while. I mean, nothing. I don't know what it was like to live in my teens or in my 20s or early 30s without a substance in my body. I'm not one of those that could get a couple of weeks. I could never get any. My couple of weeks clean and sober was having maybe, a couple of brandies at night and a few tablets. That's what I thought clean and sober looked like, and even at that, that would only be a rare occasion. And I just didn't know how to live in the world. And it progressed as we know. It was getting worse over time. So during my pregnancies, I thought this will make me stop. And I always mention about using drugs and alcohol during my pregnancies because I did not want to be one of those people. I did not. I looked down my nose at people like that. I had a sister whose all her babies had to be methadone detoxed. And I used to look down my nose at people like that thinking, like, how could they do that to their babies like inside them? But I was one of them. I didn't know that alcoholism is stronger than even your maternal instincts, which are probably one of the strongest instincts on the planet. But this disease is stronger, and not just for alcohol and drugs. We know for people who are a bit longer around, just their savage way of thinking. It outgrows, it outpowers even that. So none of those methods worked for me to stop. But what did work for the first time back in my mid-20s, I don't know, 16 years ago, I was told, I was threatened, by the ex, go into treatment, get recovery, or you're going to lose your husband and your kids. So I packed my bags, went to my first trip to a detox centre and a treatment. And I thought, do you know what, I'll go in here and I'll give it my best and I'll stay off drugs, but the alcohol won't have to go and maybe I can do this, maybe do that. I didn't know what I suffered with. I went into treatment, I talked about all my problems, poor me's, you had my life and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. But while I was in that treatment centre, these places are great centres because they introduce you to AA and CA and NA and all of these great fellowships. Like, while I was in that treatment centre, I went to my very first AA meeting. So I was attending meetings and I got about 6 months clean and sober when I left there. I never knew what I suffered with. I never heard anything about what I suffered with. I never heard about restlessness, irritability, discontent. I heard nothing about that. Now, I'm not saying that no one said that. I was just deaf, dumb and blind because I really believe until the addict is ready to hear a solution, they're deaf, dumb and blind. And I was absolutely like that. I did not hear. I could not hear. And I left that place and I went to meetings for 6 months. And during those 6 months, try and live with me. Try and live with an alcoholic or a drug addict who's not working a program and haven't got a God in their life. Because I'm telling you, I've been around them for many, many years. And sometimes I say, they'd be better off drinking. And I was better off drinking. So 6 months clean and sober and crazy and banging presses and banging doors and shouting at people who I live with. And me poor old ex-husband couldn't breathe without me coming down his throat. And I always give him a mention. Today is actually our wedding anniversary. We got married this time 18 years ago. We're divorced 10. Because eventually he grew a pair of balls and left me. You know what I mean? Eventually he left me and there's a pamphlet just coming out on Cocaine Anonymous called I Thought I Was Only Harming Myself. And it's a really powerful pamphlet because I'm telling you, I dragged him and my kids through my addiction. To think that we only come in here and we hurt ourselves, it's delusional. Like, it's fucking delusional. Like that man rang my mother one night and told her he was parked up on the side of the road and he said, rather than come home and face me, he was contemplating suicide. Now, he wasn't one of us. He's a really good man. He married me with the hopes and dreams of having a wife and kids and a happy family and living happily ever after. But I dragged him through a horrific addiction. And what came with that was lies, was robbing, was staying out at night, was not coming home, was him worried, ringing ambulances, thinking I was going to die in the bed beside him. Horrific things. And then I'd be screaming my head off him. You know what I mean? Like telling him it's all his fault. He was convinced at the end that my addiction was his fault. Because that's how manipulative I am as an addict. That I will convince you I'm feeling like shit because of the way you're behaving. It's horrific. Anyway, he eventually left. And just before he did, maybe a month or so before he did, standing in this bedroom, actually just behind me here, he said, I'm leaving. I have to go. If I don't go, I can't cope anymore. And I said, please don't leave me. And I can't emphasize how much I meant this for anyone even that's new in here. In my heart, I meant it. Please don't leave me. Like, that's the worst thing you can do to me. Don't leave me. I already feel like a piece of shit. I feel so lonely. I feel so desperate. I don't want to be doing what I'm doing. Please don't leave me in this state. Please. I'm getting emotional even thinking about it because in my heart, I really, really meant it. I said, I'm done. I promise you, I'm never going to pick up drugs again. I promise you, give me one more chance. And he did. And in that moment, he looked me in the eye and I knew he was going to give me another chance. And like that, my mind said, ah, he's staying now. I may as well get a bag tonight. And that's how quick, he hadn't even left the bedroom. That's how quick the mind went straight back into, it's a good idea to pick up as soon as I know him. And eventually then he did leave a couple of months later. And it was probably the best thing he done to me because I was left here with no one to blame. There was two small children here with me, and I was like Groundhog Day. I was using every day, buying enough that day because I promised myself I was going to stop tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. And this time, 10, obviously back in early 14, I was lying in bed here and in my heart, I'm back in the fucking Groundhog Day. I don't want to use, I don't want to use. But in my head, you have to use, you have to use. If you don't use, you're not going to be able to face the day. And I mean, we know what that place is like. You know that place where you're coming to the end of your using, you don't want to use, but you can't get out of the fucking bed unless you have a substance in your body. And my little kids were, Mommy, are you getting up? Are you getting up? And I'm like, no, go downstairs with your sister. I'll be down in a minute. Because you know how we are. We're like Sergeant Bloody Majors. And it's not going my way. Piss off. And they went downstairs and a few hours passed and I eventually texted the dealer. He says he'll meet me with a bag. And like that, I get the bang of power. I'm able to get up, get dressed, butterflies in my tummy. Physical symptoms have been removed from me, just knowing I'm getting the drug, just knowing it's on its way and I can feel good. I mean, it tells you, like, we suffer with a mind-powered disease, you know what I mean? I don't even have to have the substance in my body or in the house, but if I know I'm going to get it and it's on the way, I start getting physically relieved of the restlessness, the irritability, the discontent. And I dropped the kids off that morning and it was February 10 years ago. I'll never forget it and I hope I never forget it. I drove the kids up to a childminder's house up the road and as I'm driving away, Lucy, my youngest daughter, she was only about 3. I got a glimpse of her in the rear view mirror and she had her little nose pressed up against the woman's glass window and the little tears were running down her eyes. I just remember driving away gone. And I probably have seen that 10 times before, but for whatever reason, I was broken that day and I just was thinking, you useless fucking piece of shit. Those poor kids, like you're dragging them through this life, like you're dragging them. They would be so better off without you. And I remember driving thinking, if I just get the bag inside me, I'll be able to go home and connect with my kids. I'll be able to sit with them. I'll be able to make them their dinner. I'll be able to play with them. I'll be able to be present to them. And that's all it was for me. That's all I wanted to use for, so that I could just connect with another human being, like one of my babies, you know what I mean? And I drove to meet the dealer that day. I used in the car. And for the very first time ever, my mind said to me, or God said to me, it's no one's fault, Edwina. It's the most profound thing that's ever happened to me. For the first time, I see my life from a tiny different perspective. And that's all sponsors, fellowship, meetings, everything does. It just shows your life from a different perspective. But I seen it in that car that day. I believe I was so broken that day that I could see, like, I got the grace of God come into my heart and I seen it's no one's fault. It's your fault, Edwina. And it's really profound. Like when you're broken and open, you can see little messages and lights everywhere. Because when that happened to me, all of a sudden opportunity was everywhere. I could see the good in, well, I couldn't see the good in everything because I was physically addicted to drugs, but I could see that there was help everywhere. People reached out their hand to me that had always been reaching out their hand, but I never seen it before. And I didn't get clean for another 2 months after that because I had to go to detox and into another treatment centre and all of that. But something shifted in me. I became broken, I became open, and God's grace shone into my life. It really did. Like, and I felt for the first time I have to get responsible here. I really believe I had a 4-step experience in the car that day, well before I got clean. Like, and I went into a treatment centre for, please God, the last time. April 28th, 10 years ago. And while I was in that treatment centre, Cocaine Anonymous used to come in every week. And I had heard of Cocaine Anonymous because they were in Ireland a couple of years at that stage. We're not that old in Ireland, by the way, CA. We're only here since 2007. And I had heard about CA, but I said, I'm not going to that fellowship. Like, really what I felt was that they wouldn't accept me in that fellowship. But that's the beauty of Cocaine Anonymous because we're all mind-altering substances. But I just wouldn't go to it because, I was like, fuck that. Who do they think they are at their own fellowship? Blah, 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 blah. You know the way the mind tries to convince you that. And thankfully, the counsellor in the treatment centre said to me, "You better go to that meeting, because if you don't go to that meeting, you can get the fuck out of here." Excuse my language. And so off I went over with my tail between my legs, thinking I know it all, like, and they're all stupid over in the meeting, and who do they think they are? And you know what? When I went to that first CA meeting in the end of April, to this day, I haven't used, I haven't drank, and I have been fucking shown some amount of way of living. Like, it's just like God always gives me what I need. And thankfully, I don't always get what I want, because I did not want to go to CA because I had these preconceived ideas about it, because I have that about everything that I'm afraid of. You know what I mean? Or that I think I know better. And when I went to that CA meeting, a woman just simply talked about the doctor's opinion. She spoke about what happens when the substance is removed. And it was like I was hearing these things for the first time. Well, I did hear it for the first time. I'd never heard that before. I'd never heard someone as passionate about recovery as I did in that very first CA meeting. Obviously, I heard something, because I have become entrenched in Cocaine Anonymous since then. I have become entrenched in service in CA. Within 3 or 4 years, I was the CA's first Irish delegate to travel to Los Angeles to represent Ireland as the delegate. Not because like of anything, only that I just loved CA from the first time I came into it, because I heard hope in the bloody room. I heard a solution. I don't want to knock any kind of meetings. I don't care what type of meeting people go to, but I never heard someone talk that language before. Like, I hear it in CA, and I continue to hear it in CA. And she just said, restless, irritability, discontent. And she explained what that kind of looked like in her life. And I was like, that's me. I am a walking, restless, irritable person. Like, people can't even breathe heavy around me at home. And I'm like going from zero to rage, like froth nearly coming out of my mouth, sober. You know what I mean? I'm a walking, restless, irritable person. Like, bored was my second word. Every word that came out of my mouth, I could have everything in life, and everything would be, I'm so bored. It's so boring. Because nothing ever satisfied me. Nothing ever satisfied me. No amount of drugs ever even satisfied me. Because as soon as I'd have loads of them, I'd be thinking about when I'm going to get the next ones, or what I'll take to come down off that, or to come up off that. And, she spoke about that. And I said to that woman, when I leave this centre in another couple of weeks, will you help me? And she said, of course you would, because that's what people do in Cocaine Anonymous. They fucking help people, you know what I mean? She said to me, drive up to my house twice a week, because there was no CA where I lived down in Tipperary, and there was no CA at the time, and I used to have to drive to her house. So she lived 2 hours drive from my house. She lived 120 miles away, So for all you people who like are born into Zoom, you're spoiled rotten, because I used to have to drive to her house twice a week, once for a CA meeting, and once we used to open the book together. And I had my own profound experience going through the book. I didn't take anything in intellectually, nothing went in intellectually, but I tell you what did go in. Enough of God's grace come into my little heart, enough little few days sobriety come in. And what all as I remembered going through the books, I was so fearful, was that when you get to the end of this book, you have to help somebody else. I kept thinking, I don't want to get to the end of the book. What am I going to do? I can't read the book. I don't understand the book. She'd be reading the book to me, and I'd be like this, flicking the pages to see how many pages is left, because she's taking too long reading it. Like, nothing intellectually went into me mind, like, you know what I mean? But something happened in my heart. Something happened when one addict sat with another, and we got to talking about this stuff, and she'd break it down into layman terms, and you know, I had no problem with God, absolutely no problem with God when I came in. I'm like a big believer in God. If anything, my conception of God has got bigger, and I stepped away from any kind of religious stuff, because God is just too big in that organisation for me. God is so much bigger to me now, and I know like that God exists. I don't need proof anymore. I don't need to search for it anywhere anymore. I know it because he has showed up in my life, because I have been restored, and the obsession to take alcohol and drugs has been removed, and it was removed from me, like it says in the book. I didn't have to wait. I didn't have to go anywhere. I just had to take each step as I can, and be as willing to do each one as I can, and make me amends. And and by the time I got to step 12, to take other women through the book, and that's what I did. And a lot of me amends I didn't want to make. I didn't want to have to make them. I knew I was a desperate dying woman. It describes in the book. Like, I knew I was a drowning woman and I had to do this stuff if I wanted to stay alive. And I had a new thirst for life. I wanted to stay alive. So by the time I got to step 12, every night before, a girl had asked me to help her straight away. And she didn't ask me because I sounded great in the meeting. She asked me because my spirit was lit up. Because that's what happens when God enters the spirit. You don't have to hear it in people. You see it in people. You hear their eyes, there's a sparkle in people's eyes. They light up. I remember my ex used to say to me, my eyes were very dark. He used to know when I'd be going about to use, before I'd even use, because the spirit would turn dark in me. I was dark inside, full of resentment, full of fear, full of anger. And what happens is when you come around here, you get removed of that. One by one, going through a fifth step, God starts to remove these things from you. He removes the resentments. And he doesn't actually even remove them, he shows you. He shows you the truth. You know what I mean? You start to see the truth. You're seeing with a new pair of eyes. It's like what Chuck C says, the new pair of glasses. The eyes are taken out and wiped and put back in, and the world looks different. It doesn't look the same, you know. And one by one, the resentments and the fears start to fall away. But I heard somebody say on a speaker tape very recently, and I thought that's so true. You know, you don't get sober by going through the 12 steps, and you get sober by taking somebody else through the 12 steps. And that has been my story. You know, the obsession to use and drink was removed going through that piece of work and has been removed. But staying sober, learning about myself, understanding what resentments really are and how actually fatal they are to me, learning how I've been driven by fear all my life and continue to get bouts of fear. Learning that, no, Edwina, you're not in God's will. I can talk about God for the cows come home, and I love God and I have a great relationship with God, but most days I'm running the show and I have to keep reminding myself daily, Edwina, stop. Take your hands off this stuff. It takes practice. I'm practicing 10 years and I don't get it right most days. Most days I jump into fear and then I jump into control and I'm trying to control stuff, and I have to keep watching that. And that's why the step 10 is so important. It's like the carry around in your pocket step, and it gets overlooked. It's not waiting until I get into bed at night. I need to continue to watch for this stuff all of the time. If anything, the more I go on, the more I need to keep watching it, the more I keep not getting complacent, the more I need to get really humble with myself, the more I need to keep on doing this, you know. And that has been my experience. And so much has happened since I've come into the program and really started to live this way. Like, so much happens. It's like I still have the same home. I still have the same children. I still have the same ex-husband. That was one of the things I thought I'd get back when I come into recovery. I couldn't wait to make that amend. You know, the way you're, like, you know, you're sponsoring people even. They can't wait to get to the 9th step to go and make the amend to the opposite sex. Like, you know what I mean? That's the fourth one on the list. Don't mind the poor parents or people we've dragged through addiction. We just want, well, I want to. And I made the amend to him, and he said, he asked me a question. Did you cheat on me that time with such and such? I had an affair on him. And I said no. So my whole amend meant jack shit. I wasn't ready to make it. I was like 6 or 7 months sober. I wasn't ready to get real. And I remember my sponsor going, Edwina, you've just wasted that amend now. You're going to have to go back and make it. Leave it for a few months. Do a bit more writing around it. Do a bit more connecting with God about it. And go back and make it right when you're doing it for his sake and not your sake. You know, so I left it for a couple of months and I went back to make the amend. And you know the way you're going in, you're saying, he's going to say that, I'm going to say that, he's going to say that. And I had it all, what I thought in my head, pre-planned. And I sat down to make the amend to him. And I said, you know, in my head I was thinking, you know, we've been married, we've 2 small kids, we're going to get back together. You know, I was going to see how well and sober I am now. I'm nearly a year clean. And I made the amend anyway, and I was waiting for him to say, did you have the affair? But instead he didn't. And instead he said, oh, my partner is expecting a baby. And now I'm going to have to stand by her and stay. I can't come back now, or I can't, you know. And I remember being gutted, thinking, oh my God, like if I had told the truth the first time, maybe I would have got my marriage back, or whatever story was going on in my head, you know. And I was absolutely gutted. I was so gutted about it. But there's a gorgeous part in the book that says sometimes we don't get our families back. Sometimes we don't get reassembled with all of these things. But it doesn't matter because the bigger picture is in play. And although it feels quite painful now, Edwina, that you didn't get what you think you needed or wanted, trust me, Edwina. And that's what happened to me in my heart that day. As devastated as I was, I felt God saying, trust, Edwina, trust. Just stay with it. It's going to be okay. And it was very painful for about 3 years. I'm not going to lie, 3 or 4. I was gutted over my marriage. I was gutted that I had broke the family unit. In my head, I thought that's the way it should be. But I trusted the plan. And like the book says, when sex is troublesome, we throw ourselves harder into helping people. And that's what I done. I got really, really busy helping women. For the first 5 or 6 years in my recovery, I had 5 women on the book. So 5 days in a row, I'd have a different woman coming to the house each day. And I done that for many reasons. I done it because I really felt God was looking after me with work and financial, and that I had time to do it. I done it for that reason. I was like, I was repaying God. I was saying, thank you, God. One of my biggest things was when my marriage broke down, I would be financially insecure in a house, and what would I do with 2 small kids? But I really felt God swooped me up and minded me. I'm not saying God gives us money, but he minded me. I've not had a hungry day. My bills have been paid. So I thought, okay, how can I repay? And that's how I looked at it. And I said, well, I'm going to do your work well, God, while you're saying providing for me. Like, you know what I mean? I done it for that reason. I done it because my primary purpose is to stay clean and help others. That's my primary purpose. My primary purpose is always stay clean, Edwina, stay sober and help other people. So for the first few years, I've done that. I have different women coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. But in the meantime, I'm learning and growing myself. And we'd no Cocaine Anonymous in Tipperary at the time. So I was travelling up and down to Dublin, 2 hours drive, a couple of times a week to go to a CA meeting. So then I was going to AA in my hometown, and a couple of people from AA were like looking at me thinking, she fucking drinking or using. She seems very happy in this meeting. What's going on with her? And 1 or 2 of the men had approached me, and I told them what was going on, that I was going to this new fellowship up in Dublin. Would they like to come? One or 2 of them start coming. They went through the steps, and then eventually we opened up a CA meeting in their hometown, which is Nina, County Tipperary. There was no CA outside of Dublin 10 years ago, and then 8 years ago we opened up the first meeting here, and then we opened up a second meeting here, and then we opened up a third one, and then because of that, the next county over were coming in Waterford, and they opened a meeting, and a few of the Limerick boys were coming to our meeting, and we helped them open up a meeting. So like the fellowship just mushroomed around us, and I get so excited when I talk about that, because it reminds me like of Bill and Bob, like back in the day, like when they'd be travelling to different places to helping meetings and helping grow meetings and setting up meetings, and to be part of that. It says in their book, and it's not to be missed in the Vision for You. A fellowship grows up among us, so I'm lucky that I was right in the middle of all of that when it was happening, and part of the hype and part of the buzz of Cocaine Anonymous and people starting to get well, and it was just so lovely. Like, and that meeting, our little home group, like we were out last night having dinner, there was over 30 of us on the Friday night meeting, but altogether there's over 100 of us in our little town, like that goes to between those 3 meetings, like, you know what I mean? And it's so lovely to be part of it and see all the women and men coming and growing, and we do a lot of H&I around here. Just today, like I was in Limerick and in the Women's Centre doing a H&I meeting that I take in there every second Saturday, to the women in there. And service is my life. Service has become my life. Obviously I have a life, I have kids, I have a partner, I have other stuff going on in my life, but service has been the main part of my recovery, like, and I love it. People say, oh, I have to do this, or I have to do that. No, I really want to do that, because the reward and the payoff in my spirit and around me has been so much better, and I took my daughter last year to her first Cocaine Anonymous fellowship convention. We had it here in Tipperary. The Irish convention was in Tipperary last year, and she's not one of us now. She absolutely loved it. She loved it. She couldn't believe there was like 300 addicts at a rave on a Saturday night, drinking waters and whatever else they were drinking, Red Bulls or teas or whatever. And she couldn't believe what she was seeing. She adored it so much that she turns 18 next month. And I was asking her last month what she'd like for her 18th birthday party. And we're having a party for her, but what would she like for a present? And she asked for her present that she could have a ticket to come to the Cocaine Anonymous World Convention in Holland with me in July. And so she's going to come to that. And I mean, that's probably one of the nicest gifts recovery has given me. I've come from a house where addiction has wiped out half of my family. I've had 2 sisters in the last few years who've died from this illness. And I have another sister who's homeless, who's a crack addict living in Dublin for the last 8 years on the street and hasn't seen her children in 8 years. And I'm like, I get to I get to bear witness to this stuff. I get to recover from this stuff. I get to have a seat in Cocaine Anonymous. I get to break the chain of addiction in my family because I've decided for some reason or another to pick up the spiritual tools laid at my feet. You know, that's all I was told when I come in here. Walk the steps, Edwina, get a sponsor and help other people. And that's what I've continued to do for the last 10 years. And, you know, it's been up and down because that's what life is. It's full of ups and full of downs. But it doesn't matter. Because what I've really been searching for all my life is just peace and contentment. And I found that in CA. That no matter what's been going on, the debts, the divorces, the financial insecurities, the problems like every single person on here today has, it doesn't matter. The story doesn't matter. But how I respond to it matters. And the way I've been responding has worked for me for the last 10 years, which is I got up this morning at 6:30, like I do most mornings. I do a 7 o'clock morning meditation meeting. I do my own prayers before that. I do that little 7 o'clock meditation meeting. I reach out to a few other women in the fellowship and I get on with my day. You know, I help my kids, I be of service to them, I do whatever I have to do. I go to work, I, see to me home. I went to my little service commitment meeting today. I have a girl on step 8 and 9. I was talking a little bit around that with her. I come home, cook the dinner, and here we are now here online doing a bit of service. And that's what, that's what a good day looks like for me. That's what recovery has given me, the ability to be able to turn up here tonight. And I was trying to think of like a little paragraph to read from the book, this book that saved my life, and I'm sure most people that are on here, it's funny, I had the book for years. I used to smoke heroin and put tinfoil in there and clean pages with it and hold it in there because I thought no one in the house will ever find drugs in this book because nobody would ever pick it up, because I had it for about 7 or 8 years before I came to CA, but now I have a nice clean book. But anyway, there's a little part, I could never pick one favourite part from the book because I do love it all, but there's a little story on the back, me an alcoholic. And he says in it, I've lost it. Well, doctor, I said, what's going on? Is there anything I can do? He said, however, I heard of an organisation called Alcoholics Anonymous. That has had some success with people like you. They make no guarantee and are not always successful. But if you want, you're free to try them. It might work. Many times in intervening years, I have thanked God for that man. A man who had the courage to admit failure. A man who had the humility to confess that all his hard-won earnings of his profession could not turn up the answer. I looked up an AA meeting and went there alone. For us, CA. Here I found an ingredient that had been lacking in any other effort I had made to save myself. Here was power. Here was power to live to the end of any given day. Power to have the courage to face the next day. Power to have friends. Power to help people. Power to be sane. Power to stay sober. That was 7 years ago and many AA meetings ago, and I haven't had a drink during those 7 years. Moreover, I am deeply convinced that so long as I continue to strive in my bumbling way towards the principles I have first encountered in early chapters of this book, this remarkable power will continue to flow through me. What is this power? Well, with my AA friends, CA friends, all I can say is that this power greater than myself, if pressed, all I can do is follow the Palestinians who said it long before me. Be still and know that I am God. And I mean, that's all. When I came in here, I just wanted the alcohol and drugs to be removed. That's all I wanted. And then I was introduced to the book. And then I found in my heart everything that I had been looking for all my life anyway. I found a God that I absolutely can rely on. I found one that I can feel safe when I'm in my own company or anyone else's company. I found a power that can help me dress up, turn up, show up and get real for the first time in my life for the last few years. I found a power that can give me a little bit of self-acceptance. I found a power that most days I can accept you. I found a power that I can live by and that I don't want to die anymore, but I want to be able to show other people and go up and tell other people, do you know what? You don't have to live the way you have been living. There is another way. And it doesn't matter if we're around 5 days or 500 days or 5,000 days. We all have stuff going on. And the same power on my first day when I came in is the same power I cry out to most days when I'm in a prayer. God, please mind me. God, please show me what to do today. God, please help me be of service to the people about me today. Because when I'm in that and can do that, then everything is fine. Everything is grand. Life can be up and down, but I can be okay in that. And I suppose that's been the biggest gift I have been given. That no matter what, Edwina, everything is going to be okay. Just get up, show up, turn up, and God will look after the rest, you know. So I'll leave that at that if that's okay with everybody, because 50 minutes is just way too long. So thank you.